Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymour's Lochray.
Welcome on in to Over the Line. It's Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh with you for the next little while as we look forward to a busy weekend on the Gaelic Games front with 3 Galway clubs bidding for glory in the Connacht Club Football Championship. But first, a quick look back. Very seldom are replays as good as drawn games, so we hear in GAA parlance. But last weekend's county hurling final replay, Sean, was equally as compelling, going right down to the end. Thomas, as though a familiar story coming out on top.
Yeah, the 5 in a row has been achieved. So often the 5 in a row t-shirts for various other teams ended up in the bins. But look at 2 county finals at the end of the day. 1 point separates the 2 teams. Lochray will be bitterly disappointed. They were very, very close the first day in particular, but we're also, we'll have regrets from last Sunday as well. There's probably no worse place to be for a GA player than the week after a county final where you could have got over the line. But you have to hand this to St Thomas's. They just know how to win. They turned so many things on the head last week from the initial drawn game. I mean, the first day Lochray got a fantastic start, went 6-1 up. Yet the last day a goal by the man of the match, Mark Caulfield, had Thomas's 2 points up after about 10 to 14 minutes or so gone in the game. So that box was ticked. I think they threw Lochray with Mark Caulfield, who had played a centre half back in the first game for the first half. They used him as a forward. The previous week, maybe Darren Shaughnessy's introduction had thrown Thomas's from a Lochray point of view. So you had all these intriguing tactical little sideshows going on, but ultimately it came down the home stretch. 2 brilliant long-range frees from Conor Cooney. His role in setting up the goal, he took the game literally by the scruff of the neck, burst out 2 or 3 tackles, gave the ball to Caulfield, he finished at the back of the net. But in that latter period, Lochray will know they had chances, but ultimately a team without, and I think this has to be spelled out, David Cherry, Shane Cooney and James Regan, 3 key players for St Thomas's, weren't on the field with injuries or whatever. So I think you have to take your hats off to them. 5 in a row, and who says where it's going to end?
Well, they'll be out in a couple of weeks' time, Sunday fortnight, in the All-Ireland semi-final, and there are 3 Galway clubs in football hoping to do the exact same thing and get through to All-Ireland semi-finals. So we've got Clifton, Dunmore, MacHales, and we have Moycullen all in action this weekend. It is a red letter weekend for Galway club football. Only once ever has it happened that Galway have swept the boards in Connacht Club Football Championship action, and that was back in 2005. And well, let's see what happens this weekend. We're delighted to have with us the Dunmore MacHales manager, Gary Delaney, and we also have Ian Cooney from the Roscommon Herald, who might have a little bit of inside knowledge in 2/3 of Galway's opponents, and maybe 3/3, because Ian wouldn't be too far away from Turlestran either, the Sligo side, who are managed by a Roscommon man, Ian, and who will be taking on Moycullen in that Connacht Senior Club final. So first things first, Ian, what chances have Turlestran in this Connacht Club final against Moycullen?
Well, obviously Moycullen, I think, are the favourites, Ollie, and rightly so. They've been around the block in Galway now for the last few years, of course, managed by Roscommon man Don Kennellan. And of course, you have Don Kennellan coming up against Fergal O'Donnell, who were former Roscommon teammates, would have been on the team that won the Connacht Championship in dramatic fashion in 2001. So that's, I suppose, from a Roscommon perspective, that's a storyline in itself. But from a Turlestran point of view, won the last 7 titles in Sligo. And, you can imagine bringing someone in like Fergal O'Donnell with the experience that he has, essentially is to, maybe try and get them over the line in Connacht. The draw was opened up for them this year. It would have opened up for the likes of Mary's and Leitrim as well. When you don't have Roscommon, Mayo and Sligo on your side of the draw, the aim is when you win your county is to get to a Connacht final. And it was a bit of a dogfight in Carrick and Shannon a couple of weeks ago. But Turlestran produced a very good second half performance to get them over the line. And as I said, they've won 7 in a row in Sligo. A lot of very experienced players within their ranks, and if there's one man that can, get a team prepared for a big game and to deliver a big performance, it's Fergal O'Donnell. We saw it in 2010 with the Rossies when they were the underdogs going in against Sligo in the Connacht final, and they were magnificent that day. So, if you're Moycullen, you're rightly the favourites for this game, but you dare not underestimate Turlestran.
And I suppose the other thing from a Tour de Strand perspective, having an outside influence coming in, is he's not there that long. So they would have been kind of getting used to Eamon O'Hara, and there was a lot of talk that it was very negative kind of football.
Defensive stuff, yeah.
Loads of men behind the ball, but Tour de Strand are a bit more expansive now. I suppose the question is, do they have enough firepower for a start, and have they enough to contain the likes of Sean Kelly, who's probably playing the best club football of anybody in the country right now?
Well, I think, Ollie, if Tour de Strand play to the potential and Moycullen play to the potential, there's only going to be one winner. Moycullen are going to win the game, but Tour de Strand have been sort of, they've been putting up 11, 12, maybe 13 points a game, and just keeping the opposition at arm's length. So they'll want to turn this Connacht final into a really tight game, whereas I think Moycullen, they'll want to get back to where they were against Westport in the first round, and let those free scoring forwards that they have just open up and express themselves. So I think that's what both teams will be hoping for. The weather is probably going to be okay. It's going to be dry. It'll be cold. Probably might play into Moycullen's hands a bit. But look, football at this time of the year is, pitches are heavy, and 11, 12, 13 points are going to win a lot of games for you.
We're still trying to, I suppose, Sean, draw a comparison between Moycullen's performance in hammering Westport, and then, they weren't great against Strokestown, but they kind of dug it out when they had to. So I suppose the first question for you, Ian, is, with Strokestown against Moycullen, is that how they were in Roscommon? Are they that sort of a stubborn outfit who are really up for every game? They brought so much commitment and physicality to the game that it really caught Moycullen on the hop, I felt, until kind of 20 minutes in, they settled once Strokestown had the black card, and then Moycullen played their way into the game.
Well, that has been Strokestown, every year in Roscommon. I suppose they got a bit of luck this year in terms of, they didn't win a group game in Roscommon. They only had 1 point, coming into the knockout stages, and they relied on goals in those games against Roscommon Gales and Oran to get to the county final. And unfortunately, they just couldn't get that goal against Moycullen, and I suppose that proved to be their downfall in the end. But you always know what you're going to get with Strokestown. They may not have won the Roscommon Championship in 20 years, but always a team with great heart, great resilience, as you say yourself. Very, very stubborn. And I think Moycullen sort of, just might have read a small bit maybe into their own hype after the performance against Westport, and you have to come down from that when you're the warmest of favourites going into a club championship, that has produced a lot of Connacht winners in the last couple of years. The Roscommon club champions have done well in Connacht, so for Strokestown to come out, maybe they underestimated them a small bit, but I think Strokestown showed what they're made of, and if they had a few more quality forwards within their ranks that day, they possibly would have beaten Moycullen in Tuam Stadium.
But I suppose Don Connellan now has nearly seen this happen twice to a degree. I mean, we saw the Galway County semi-final as well, where the much hyped game and the big win over Montbellew, and the county final for large stages, Salthill and Knocknacarra were nearly inch perfect in what they did, but Moycullen got there. Then there was a lot of hype around that Westport game, I think, in the build-up to it. Westport, the coming team in Mayo as well, and then got over that. And again, the first thing that struck me, went 4 points to no score down against Strokestown, which indicated, maybe not quite at the level again. So I suppose Don Connellan, and you have an insight into him, Ian, he probably has now seen this twice, so I would imagine he's saying to his troops this week, look, the first thing we need here is a performance.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you would think at this stage that, Moycullen have, got their fright. They've got the kick up the backside that they need, because that Strokestown performance wouldn't be good enough to beat Tour de Strand in the Connacht final. But crucially, they know they have the talent, they know they have the players, and if they play to the potential, I think they'll win this game.
Plus, they're back in Pearse Stadium, which is familiar territory, where
David
they play
Wynn is back as well.
95% of their matches, they've got a full card to choose from as well in terms of personnel. So all things point towards a Moycullen victory. Ian, I'll hold you for a second, because the next man we're going to talk to is going to be very interesting on your thoughts and inside track on the intermediate champions coming out of Roscommon, who will provide the opposition for Dunmore MacHales. Great to have Gary Delaney back with us again. And again, just one of these extraordinary performances from Dunmore Dunmore MacHales, Gary, where we were kind of cursing them at half time, cursing them even more 6 minutes into the second half.
Don't tell us what you were doing now.
When they were 1-6 to 1-3 down. And then this unbelievable run of maybe 20 minutes of some of the best club football played in the province by any team at any grade this year. So I suppose for you on the sideline, you'd love to come up with the formula to make Dunmore MacHales play like that for 60 minutes and you'd beat all around you. But first things first, looking back on the win over Ballyhonus, so many positives for you to take, Gary, and yet you'd so much analysis to do as well on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a lot said at half time, but it was nice and calm. We just took we just changed our shape a small bit at the back, and we made 2 or 3 slight changes, personnel changes in the team, and just asked them to stop. They were doing silly stuff, they were taking the ball standing and they're bringing the ball into tackle and hopping ball on a wet day, and just like basically said that you have a half an hour to turn it around or out of the Connacht Championship, and we just got to run at Ballyhonus, and Ballyhonus didn't know what to do or how to counteract it. So, and then they had a few, I suppose, scoreable chances that they missed. But I suppose that came down to the pressure that we put them under in the middle third.
It was a difficult day. There's no point saying any otherwise. Conditions were shocking. And yet that was the point at where Dunmore MacHales seemed to play their best football. So, I mean, I don't know, is it a confidence thing in this group, or right now in their mental state going into a Connacht final? I mean, the mood must be pretty high in the camp.
Oh yeah, I know. Like the mood is good. They've been moving well the last couple of weeks in training. Like I think I've seen them in games over the last couple of years, and they've been absolutely brilliant. It's just trying to get that total performance for longer than 20 minutes, and that's what we need on Saturday to beat St. Dominic's. 20 minutes is not going to be good enough, and we know that. And I think since we've gotten out of Galway, they've expressed themselves a bit more, and I'm looking for more of the same on Saturday.
And I suppose semi-finals in a way, Gary, are not the day for the kind of perfect performance either. So they're not. It's probably ideal in a way that there's a bit to work on, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I suppose any championship day you win, it doesn't matter how you win once you win, But like Connacht final now is the club's first Connacht final, obviously, and it's a big occasion. And it'd be fitting if we could have that performance when we need it the most, And I believe that it is in the boys, and I think that come Saturday they'll be buzzing for it and looking to get at these Dominic boys.
Well, I think that's probably the most encouraging thing out of the Ballyhonus thing. I mean, you've seen Sean with St. Thomas's. You need kind of certain guys and your big guys to step up when it matters most.
Yeah.
And that must be the pleasing thing, because you are kind of helpless, aren't you, on the sideline, Gary, when it comes to trying to turn a match that's clearly going away from you. You say what you say at the dressing room and you hope it has an impact, but how much control really have you, and how much is it down to the lads themselves just, I suppose, grasping the nettle? And then you've got so many leaders like the Shane McGraths, the Matthew Reddingtons to literally take control of that game.
Yeah, and in fairness to the boys, that like a lot more boys stood up. Jamie Cohn, when Brendan Carr when he came in, these boys they just grasped it. They knew themselves that they had a half an hour to turn it around, and it was really satisfying. And I think we won a lot of breaking ball in the second half, and the hunger was there to win the breaking ball. And yeah, we just really worked it through the phases very well, and moved it through the lines really well in the second half. And we didn't take a stand, and we kept moving them around. We found spaces which we weren't finding in the first half. And again, I think Ballyhonus had put so much into the first half against that breeze that they ran out of steam a small bit, maybe midway through the second half. So our fitness really showed as well, also in Castlebar 2 weeks ago, I thought.
Ian, St. Dominic's, what kind of an outfit are they in terms of coming through the Roscommon Championship? And I suppose more importantly, were they surprised at Dunmore beating Ballyhonus?
Well, to answer your first question, Ollie, St. Dominic's would have been in and around the Roscommon Intermediate Championship for the last number of years. Reached the final in 2020, were beaten after extra time reached the final in 2021 and were beaten again after extra time by St. Folia's, who went on to beat Navanna Litchermore in the Connacht final. And we saw that, you know, there was very little between the teams in that game. So that's the sort of standard you're dealing with. They're a pretty good outfit, a very well balanced outfit. Wouldn't have, you know, so many marquee players. I think it's the balance within the team that's their strong point. Whereas last year with Folias, you had the Murta brothers and players like that. I think with St. Dominic's, you're getting a more evenly balanced team, strong in every position. And obviously have a very few good players. In terms of Dunmore beating Ballyhaunis, I wouldn't have thought that, you know, that would have been a huge surprise to St. Dominic's. I think St. Dominic's, you know, again, so what Gary was saying, that once you come out of your own county, it's so hard to win your own county. There's nearly a feeling of liberation. There's a weight of expectation just taken off your shoulders. And, you know, Dominic's have been the bridesmaids for, you know, the last 2 years, and they finally got over the line, and ironically didn't play that well in the county final, but it was all about getting over the line. They did that. And, you know, despite having the disappointment of the last minute postponement against Aucknasheelan, you know, they went back to Carrick-on-Shannon last weekend and did their stuff convincingly in the first half. Poor second half performance, but it was kind of a situation of having what we hold. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really good game against Dunmore, and, you know, a very, very hard game to call.
One place we have to mention, Gary, and I'm sure it's gone down in history as never to be mentioned again in the parish of Corofin, and that's 2 syllables, Kiltoom, which I suppose brings its own nightmare scenario going back to Corofin and Bridget's in another era. But the Kiltoom pitch, that it's near enough where St. Dominic's are based in Knockcrockery. Have you had a chance to visit there? I'm sure you've got your own knowledge of the facility as well. Are you happy the Connacht final is being played there, given that Clifton are in Hyde Park for the junior final
at the same time?
Yeah, look, to me, a pitch is a pitch. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, I haven't great memories there as a player, for certain reasons that, as you said, Ollie, we won't speak about. But yeah, look, again, a pitch is a pitch. The playing surface is actually really, really good in it, you know. So it plays it's a very long, big pitch. It plays long. We haven't been up there, but look, it's up to the boys now really to get at St. Dominic's, you know. And as Ian was saying there, you know, Dominic's are a really good outfit, well balanced. It's funny. It was our first challenge match of the year. We played St. Dominic's. So we know a bit about each other, and what it will be a good game of football, because it's, like, in my opinion, 2 good footballing sides.
Yeah, and I suppose you mentioned how ironic that is. The first game you organise at the start of the year, you end up coming together. So maybe there was a sense at that time that there could be something later on in the year as well. Like, the prize is huge in terms of getting through to an All-Ireland semi-final. I'm sure that hasn't been spoken about much, but in terms of making history, or what are the kind of lines you've been using in training, Gary, in the build-up to this big game? Plus, of course, the fact that Dominic's were delayed because of weather, so you've had the chance to go and see them.
Yeah, no. In terms of history, look, I have spoke about it, where, like, the club is a very there's a lot of history in the club. Where, you know, 15 senior county titles, but the one thing that the boys, they can create their own history on Saturday, becoming the first team ever to win a Connacht title, and that'd be absolutely amazing. And that has been our goal since we won the county title. So yeah, look, that's what we're saying in training. We're just working really hard. We're getting our game plan in place and staying totally focused at the job at hand.
And I suppose the other thing, Gary, you play in the now as well, in the term that we're now into more difficult weather conditions. The likelihood is, we've seen in the last few weekends, the scoring rate has been dropping. Even talking to a few different managers over the last few weeks that say play with a wind in the first half. It's funny, one of them made the comment to me, it's just important to have a lead. You may think it's worth 5 or 6 points, but even 1 or 2 points in conditions like this make it difficult for the opposition, and ask questions, and maybe ask composure questions later on in the half if you're still leading by that. So these conditions have to be taken into account as well. In other words, it's a much different championship than the one you started in Galway all those months ago now.
Yeah, 100%. And like we're a quick footballing team, and like warm weather does suit us, and the bounce of the ball does suit us. But look, you have to adapt, and that's what all good teams do. And thankfully, this week has been fairly good, and I think Saturday's promised nice and dry and no wind, so it'll be the first game we had in maybe 4 games where there's no actual storm. Um, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it now. I really, and I know the boys are looking forward to it. And but yeah, like I've said it since we won the county final. Every point, every score is worth 2 now. So, and that comes down to the playing conditions.
Gary, wish you well. Good luck to you and all
Best
the
luck,
Dunmore
Gary,
lads and their intermediate final. That, of course, will be brought
Sean.
to you
Thanks,
live on Saturday from 1:30. Gary Delaney there, who's leading Dunmore MacHales on their own odyssey. Ian, I suppose we got to have a look at Clifton and St. Ronan's in the junior final, which is on at the same time, which is a pity that they're clashing at 1:30 in Hyde Park on Saturday as well. Again, home advantage, but it is a big ground, a big county ground as well. Clifton have again plotted their way through this with 2 excellent victories, including Island 80, the Mayo team in Athenry last time out 2 weeks ago. So what can Clifton expect of St. Ronan's? What kind of an outfit are there? Because I believe they're, am I right in saying, the most northerly club in Roscommon?
Yeah, Ollie. So St. Ronan's, I suppose, as you rightly say, the most northerly outpost, if you like to call them. They're sort of tucked in between Sligo and Leitrim in the very, very north of the county. The famous Arigna Mountains, one of the most beautiful views you'll ever see on a fine summer's day. You can see something like 8 counties on top of the mountain. But, they're little villages. They would have Keju, well known for, winning a lot of Tidy Town awards. Ballyfarn and Arigna. So they're the 3 villages that the club serves. The most remarkable thing about St. Ronan's is that, they were nearly out of extinction just a couple of years ago. I mean, that part of North Roscommon, like a lot of rural clubs, depopulation has really, really hit them badly. And I was talking to a couple of the lads during the week in the preview for this game, and they were talking about 2017, which is only 5 years ago, where they were only going to games with 1 sub. So that's how close they were to sort of, it was only for a lot of the older lads sort of stuck at it and just kept the show on the road, and a lot of some really, really great people in the club just kept the thing ticking over for a few years to ride out the storm. And here they are now in a Connacht final, which is a real sort of rags to riches story. You've got to say as well that the Roscommon Junior Championship over the last few years has been dominated by, I suppose, the second teams of the strong population bases in the south, of the likes of the Clannan Gales, the Porrick Pierces, the St. Bridget's. So like St. Ronan's actually didn't win the county final. They were beaten after a replay by Porrick Pierces. So they then had to go, as Roscommon's highest ranking first team, they had to go into the junior championship, where they played Ormore Gales of Sligo, who had been knocked out with the Sligo championship at the end of September. And it was a week after the county final replay. They had lost, St. Ronan's had lost one of their, most valuable club members, Paddy Conway, who had stood with them shoulder to shoulder on the line, and he died suddenly that week. So they had a lot going on that week in the lead up to the Ormore Gales game, but they just got through that by 5 points in the end, finished with a late flourish to meet Clifton in the final. But that was an important game to win for them. Just to put the disappointment of the county final behind them, and they are just looking at this now as bonus territory, and they're going to go in and give it a right lash. But there's no doubt about it. You'd have to say that Clifton are probably the warmest of favourites going into this game. But Ronan's will bring everything to the table. They've a lot of experienced lads there, and who knows what will happen on the day.
We look forward to bringing you live coverage of Clifton and St. Ronan's as well. Ian, many thanks for joining us. Ian Cooney from the Roscommon Herald, who'll be there covering that game on Saturday afternoon as well. So we leave the last word to a Sligo man. Let's go and join Gavin Cawley from the Sligo Weekender, who's been listening in as well. Gavin would be a familiar face and a familiar voice to those of you who've followed Galway teams either up to Sligo or vice versa, as we've seen over the years as well. So Gavin, we'll finish as we've started with a look at Tourlestrane coming down to play Cullen on Sunday in Pearse Stadium, and maybe talk us through some of the big names that Tourlestrane have, or some of the guys that Tourlestrane will need to produce huge performances if they're going to cause a shock on Sunday.
I suppose most people would be taking Tour de Strand and having much of a chance, but they're seven times in a row Sligo County champions, and some of the big players you need to be watching out for, the Gavin brothers, Liam and Gary. Gary's the captain this year. John Kelly, who played 1 year with Sligo seniors, he's probably, if not the most talented player in Sligo at the current time, but at club level you can see how strong he is. He drives them forward. He's been playing centre forward the last couple of years. This year he's playing full forward. You have Conan Marin, who broke into the Sligo senior team. He'd be playing around midfield. And then they have players like the likes of former captain James Leonard. I think he's 36 now at this stage, but he's still causing a lot of damage. In terms of their own campaign, they would have played St Mary's in the county final, and I think their experience, no doubt, got them over the line. They were 2 points down into an injury time. They somehow got a point late on to bring them to extra time, and they showed their experience, and they ran out winners then in extra time. And then another one for anyone for Galway that mightn't have paid much heed to the semi-final where they played St Mary's at Carrick. They were trailing by 4 points at half-time, 6 points to 2. The weather conditions did play a factor, but they didn't concede at all in the second half, and that would be very pleasing for the current manager, who is Fergal O'Donnell as well. So that would be a big bonus for them going into this game, no doubt.
Pearse Stadium is a pitch, I suppose, that not a lot of these guys would have played in, would they, from Tour de Strand? Albeit, I'm sure there's a confidence there as well with Sligo's under-20 success from last year as well, and the input Tour de Strand have as well. So what about the venue then? I mean, Mike Cullen, we've spoken about Gavin play pretty much all of their games there as well. Does that add to the difficulty task for Tour de Strand?
I don't think it'll bother them whatsoever. They'll be looking their agenda is that they wanted to get into the Connacht final. I suppose the last couple of years, it's no doubtly been talked about coming close, not getting over the line. Couple of close shaves that would have came across Corofin a couple of times in their heyday. A couple other times came close against Ballintubber in Enniscrone a couple of years back. I think there was only 2 points, and you had the O'Connor brothers playing very well at that time. But this is where they wanted to be. No doubt there will be a few nerves for them. Salt Hill's a big pitch as you talk about. But the brand of football they play probably not the nicest brand to watch. But since Fergal O'Donnell come in, he's tried to change the style a small bit. But in recent times, they've gone back to this defensive style of play where they get a lot of bodies back, and then they'll try to break with the likes of John Kelly and Liam Gaughan. And if they get the space, despite Mike Cullen being very strong, they have the players to do the damage up top if they get the ball in the right places.
You took the question out of my mouth there, Gavin, in the sense of what has Fergal O'Donnell brought differently to it. But I'm intrigued by you saying in the last game or two they've nearly gone back to type. Is there a reason for that? Is it that they're more comfortable in that defensive setup?
I suppose the best way to end them, they're like a computer nearly.
I know it takes a while.
It's worked for them, so why change something that's been working for them? I suppose other known factor about Tour de Strand, I suppose, that I don't know, is he going to give them any bit of knowledge this year? Managing Corofin, you had Kevin Johnson there last year who got over the line with Tour de Strand and then moved over to Corofin. Didn't work out for him, but I'm sure he'd be looking for more success next year if he's still there. But like with Tour de Strand, they'll be thinking, keep themselves in this game. They don't want to concede goals, and I'm sure we all seen what happened with Westport in terms of Desi Keneally, in terms of scoring from free. So they'll be looking at their play is keep it tight, but trying to negate Mike Cullen's scoring power and cut out the frees. And if they do that, and the conditions of Salt Hill, I was there a couple of weeks ago. When Clifton got over the line in their opening round, it was windy as well on that occasion, and Tour de Strand will feel if they have the win, maybe it draws the game in a bit closer. And it might be necessarily if it was good conditions, but I'm sure there's going to be. You're talking December football now. There's definitely going to be conditions, and side Salt Hill, it comes with the territory half the time, doesn't it?
Well, Gavin, I don't know where you saw wind. That was one of the first times we wind at Pearse Stadium, Gavin. I don't know where.
Things have changed a lot in the last couple of weeks, Gavin. Yeah, we've got that retractable roof now that was built in the last couple of weeks.
And the naming rights coming.
See, the one thing is, and no more than the under-20s that I referenced already, Gavin, and with respect, but like opportunities to win Connacht championships don't come around that often for Sligo teams, especially Sligo club teams. So I suppose if this somehow were to happen for Tour de Strand, it will. I mean, where would it rank in the overall scheme of Sligo teams winning provincial titles?
I suppose you're on, for anyone that doesn't know much about how many titles has been won at senior level. It's only ever been done once, and that was back in 1977, if I'm not mistaken, with St Mary's. They got the better. I think it was Clonagale, I think the bet from Roscommon on that occasion. So it hasn't been done too often. You're going back to the last appearance, if I'm not mistaken as well, was also in Salt Hill. I think it was when Caltra got the better of Eastern Harps, I think, and that's many moons ago. I think that's 2004. So these occasions don't happen too often for the likes of Sligo teams. You go back then where they had a bit of success, where Easky, who won the Connacht junior hurling title last weekend when they bet Ballygar, they represented Sligo in an All-Ireland junior final a couple of seasons ago. I think that was 2018 or 2019. So it doesn't happen too often for Sligo teams. They'll go in with nothing to lose, and I'm sure all the experts, all the people of Galway won't expect much from Tour de Strand, and I'm sure the bookies don't expect them to be close at all. So they won't care about what the scoreline. I think I read a comment by Gary Gaughan, the captain. He says that if it's a very poor game and we only win by a 0.54 or whatever it might be, they won't care as long as they're the champions, and that's their mindset throughout that 7 titles campaign that they've done. And it all started with 2 Tour de Strand greats, with Jerry McGowan and Eamon O'Hara, that started this run where they've gone so long without losing a game, which is very impressive for any club.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, winning is a habit, and Tour de Strand are on a serious winning habit right now. Gavin, thanks a million. We look forward to seeing you in Pearse Stadium on Sunday. Thanks to Ian as well. We'll chat to him over the weekend in the Hyde Park on Saturday for Clifton. And of course his colleague Kevin Egan will be in Kiltoom for the big game between Dunmore, MacHales and St Dominic's. So there you have it. They've got 3 big games to look forward to this weekend. You've got the County Minor A football final on as well, Sean. So the games are getting a little bit thinner as we get closer to Christmas. But of course we do have a big weekend the following weekend of ladies football in Camogie to look forward to.
And 2 Galway teams going ahead for it there. And of course we're also into convention time of the year, and we know the convention took place this week. Some interesting sound bites that came out of it. The naming of Pearse Stadium. Naming rights there, which is obviously something that's lucrative, and we can see going around the country now. We have TEG Park and Mullingar and Breffni Park. I laugh when you go into those venues now. There's always some steward that'll give you a little sheet going in to say, it is no longer
make sure
Cusick Park is TEG or whatever. But look at their opportunities that can be maximised, and looking at the financial situation, what is it, 1.2 million coming in through the gates of club games in Galway? That's huge.
That's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. And throw in, what was it, 100 grand for streaming? So you can see the income that can be generated. And I suppose, I think Paul Bellio has outlined that the next phase now is the development of your county grounds. And, I hear talk now of lights in Pearse Stadium, which is not before time.
Well, we've heard that talk before, but he put a timeline on it this morning of within 15 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, certainly it's not before time.
Not before time. Tuam Stadium, the stand, that's been rumbling for a while as well, hasn't it?
It's daft when you see how far behind we are compared to other counties, and that's before you start talking about Athenry and Duggan Park, which need major overhauls as well.
One other footnote I see as well, that Galway are still pushing to get the minor hurlers into a provincial campaign, and mention Munster as much as Leinster. That situation where the minors are out there, your seniors are in the Leinster Championship. The under-20s is another one. I think there's a major issue there around your best players, if they play a senior, can't play the under-20 competition. I think that's something that has to be just sorted and give those lads the chance. They don't have to be training with the under-20 team all the time, but surely they play the games. But the minors, I think, need to be that needs to be aligned as well.
There'll be a lot going on between now and Congress in February behind closed doors in meeting rooms up and down the country, but I think it's time Galway started playing a little bit of hardball when it comes to their minor hurlers. So watch this space. There'll be a lot going on at a Central Council meeting this Saturday. Thanks a million for watching. Enjoy your weekend of sport wherever you are, and we'll see you back again next week.
Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymour's Loch Ray.